Yo, what's good, guys? Man, welcome back for another episode of Gaming on the Block, episode 8, with myself, Annie, and Will. Wait, that's not Will. Today we have a special guest with us, a much better looking version of Will, and that is Andrew Wall. What is
That's
good,
right.
Andrew? What's up? How you going?
Just call me Will. I'm doing
Just going.
great.
Yeah, awesome. Yo, I'm super excited to have you on, man. Obviously, Will can't make it today just because of the time zones and everything like that. So we've got Andrew coming in. I'm really excited to have him as our first guest. Obviously, we've kind of done a bit with myself and Andrew before, and Illuvium talks, podcast things. So I'm really excited for this. Actually, where we're discussing a wider array of topics and Web3 gaming in general. I think it's Andrew. You're always the host, and you're kind of getting the most out of your guests. But today we want to get your mindset and your perspective on a lot of these things. So
I'm ready.
yeah. Awesome. Yo, Annie, I kind of ignored you, but how are you feeling today, man? How's everything with you?
No, all good, man. Things are great. I'm glad to be back. And for those that caught our last episode, I was traveling for about a week, and in crypto time, that feels like 6 months. So it's good to be back and in the swing of things now.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yo, just before we get started into anything, by the way, if you guys can't watch the full thing, follow our clips channel down below. The link is there. I'm going to put it up on screen. Daily clips of just short sections just to keep up to date with everything that's going on. But now that's out of the way, housekeeping is done. The first topic I want to talk about, Andrew, and it's something that I think is near and dear to you actually, is the rise and the future of IBGs, the whole interactive blockchain gaming or games. We haven't actually heard this term before. I believe it's something that Illuvium has coined.
It is.
Can you kind of talk about that? I don't know if Kieran's going to take the credit and say he coined the term, or was it a team effort? Can you kind of talk about the general idea of IBGs, how that came about, and what that means to you?
So where it came from. So Kieran tasked me with coming up with a term like that.
Okay.
I came up with like 30 different options, everything from an interoperable gaming suite to you name it, a million different options. I sent him some. He's like, those are pretty good. I was like, how about an interverse? It's an interoperable metaverse and all this stuff. And he's like, yeah, okay. And then he went into a dark hole to go write his keynote speech for the first Australian crypto conference, and he came out with IBGs after that, which is just a it's just a 3-word way to summarize the same concept that we've been talking about, where it's Illuvium is doing the world's first interoperable blockchain games that actually work with each other and from the design level. And we had that recent talk on Illuva Talks. Everybody thinks when they think of interoperability, they're thinking, how do I get a skin or a gun or a character in another game? And they can do a partnership with another entity. And they think of it as more of a marketing interoperability or a way to share players with another game. That's generally what people are thinking about with interoperability. We can get some marketing off of this. Illuvium isn't thinking about it that way at all. We're thinking about interoperability as being like a core part of the gameplay design. That's what's so different about what Illuvium's doing. And so, yeah, Kieran gets credit for coining that term. But I think that Aaron Warwick gets credit for literally creating the idea and the design underneath it. Kieran is just the one marketing the idea now as an IBG. So he rolled that up out at his Australian crypto conference. And it's my job to be his wingman and, kind of explain the message in different ways, in different forums.
Yeah, awesome. Yo, Annie, what's your take on this, man? Like, obviously, again, Illuvium is Kieran, Illuvium in general is the people that kind of coined the term. After hearing the term and what you've heard about it from Kieran, from Andrew, what are your thoughts on it? Because obviously we cover gaming in general, Web3 gaming in general. What are your thoughts on it? Do you think this is the future? Do you think this is the route that we should be going?
Yeah, so I think there's a few different major benefits that we see with this, and I think the most popular video that I've ever launched by almost an order of magnitude, I really describe how Illuvium is approaching their ecosystem and the interconnection between the land game and the overworld and the arenas. This is really it's a pretty unique structure. You see, I think, some similarities in other games where you can trade characters kind of between them, but it's always really in a very controlled way. and you're playing the same game mode virtually, right? So if you're trading, characters between Pokemon games with other people, you're still fundamentally playing the same game. And I can't think of anything that has an economic element like Illuvium Land has, where in one game you're basically playing the game to fund another one, and allow players in the overworld to travel. So I think it's got a lot of potential to take individual worlds and all of a sudden create a stronger sense of branding, create a stronger sense of stickiness for customers and gamers, because they're going to get attached to their characters. And for the first time, you really don't have to leave your favorite character, your favorite alluvial that you captured when you were just starting out at level 1 in the game. All of a sudden you can now take it into a different world and play with it. So I think that's really an interesting concept. I have a few concerns and we can talk through them. But I also think that it gives us a lot of potential breadth for builders and designers to really expand in ways that we haven't seen in traditional Web 2 gaming.
What are your concerns, man? I'm curious. Like, just share it with us now, when we can kind of to touch on that.
Yeah, so I think there are two main ones that I see. The first is as an actual former software developer, this adds a tremendous amount of complexity to the game world, and I think we know that both of you have worked with Grant and Aaron and the team. As you've got to think about balancing characters in one game mode, let's talk about just the arena, for instance. You normally have to work through thousands of possible combinations. The analytics behind all of that is pretty complex. Now, all of a sudden, when you add the complexity that your Ramfire, is it overpowered in the arena? No, it's fine. But all of a sudden, now you add another element, another gameplay genre. All of a sudden, you have to worry about the interactions, not just in an arena auto battler, but in a first-person shooter, or in the Mario Kart style racing that Kieran likes to talk about. So I do worry a little bit about the sort of the tech debt that gets created by this, where the developers are going to have to spend a lot of time in balance across other games. And when you make a tweak in the overworld, all of a sudden you've got complexity now to another title. So I don't think that's
hit pause there really quick. I mean,
that's a challenge.
I think there is a way to make that more. I mean, Illuvium, I think, is taking a simple approach to the way that the games are integrated with each other on a gameplay level and balance level. The alluvial that you capture in the overworld, you can fight them in the arena, but you can't fight them anywhere else right now. And so, the fuel that you're harvesting in the Illuvium Zero game, you can't get that other places, or like, you know what I mean? It's there's no competing functions, like where the bridges are between each game. Those assets can't be used in multiple places right now in the 3 games that we're planning on launching with. Yeah. I think the complexity that you're referring to, so Aaron solved that so far.
Yeah.
But the complexity you're referring to is if we add a 4th game, a 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, which Kieran announced that we're planning on doing 9 right now is in the scope, and that's not a joke. Yeah, Aaron's already got 9. I was cagey about this in previous interviews. We didn't want to make it sound like we were like developing 9 games, but that's in the plan. As you add those additional games, think about it though. If we added a Mario Kart style game, would adjusting the balance of, let's say, Ramfire in the arena impact the Mario Kart game at all? No. It's just a character that's in that other game. You have the NFT in one game, and then that same NFT just unlocks that character to be driven in a cart in the other game. So the really key part here, when you're thinking about it as a developer, is what are the bridges between each game that's making them interoperable? Yeah. And will there be some sort of balance consideration across multiple titles? And the answer to that question is, based on your concern, you can't have balance in any game impact the balance in another game. You need to design the bridges between these games to be balance free. And if you can do that, then you can have truly kind of independent games that interact with each other. So does that create a design challenge? Yes, but it requires you to kind of narrow your focus in on what that bridge is going to be between the games. And I get concerned that developers in the future will try to be too ambitious, and they'll say, the spaceship you get in our game number 1, you can fly that in game number 2, 3, and 4. And you know, the accessories that you put on it will be there, and the blah 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 you put on it will be there. And then they're planning on bringing over balance of the and functionality of those NFTs across multiple games. The balance and functionality can't be there, I don't think, right now, as you move it across multiple games. Just unlocking that, let's say, character or IP in other games, or unlocking an experience of some type, seems like it's the low-hanging fruit if you're going to be building a large suite of games. I'm sorry to kill your flow, but it seems like that's the way to avoid that problem. But I could see a lot of developers falling into a trap of their incredible vision of how this one spaceship is going to work in 5 games and destroying themselves. Back to you, Annie.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with that. I think the concern is more longer term. It's not with the current 3 titles. There's obviously no risk there. But again, you know, as I've said a few times, I'm interested in Illuvium becoming the game over the next decade, not just with the first 3 titles. So I want to make sure that we have a clear approach in, how are we going to handle this when we do have another sort of battler type of style game, whether it's a MOBA or it's an FPS or whatever. So I think those are just some the first round of concerns. The second one is more from a user standpoint, where I think the power of Web3 gaming is, of course, ownership, and that all of a sudden you have an NFT that you can take from game to game to game. So the replayability is huge. The value proposition for gamers is amazing. The additional complexity here, I think, is now you have a broader economy to worry about. You also have a broader economy to play with. And so gamers that like the metagame, they like the concept of trading and buying and selling NFTs and alluvials. They're going to love it. Like, for me, this is amazing. This is not a negative at all. Like, the fact that I could foresee that my Scoriox is going to become super valuable a year from now because the new game coming out seems very well positioned for it. Like, I'm all about that. I'll try and get some and save them for trading later. But I think we have a number of gamers that are not so into that metagame style. They're more in the infra game, and having to worry about, I wanted to go out and finish my team that I was collecting for the auto battler. But by the way, the dating simulator now has, my Fyrox is the most popular character in the game. So I've got to worry about the price is now spiked and make that harder decision about selling or keeping my own characters. So I think there's just another level of kind of economic complexity that comes with it.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really see that. I mean, I understand some people will be turned off by that, and I think the majority of people won't be. So the trend I'm seeing overall, like way beyond Web3, is people are getting bored with video games as they get older. That is something that I've experienced, and a lot of people as they get older, they get bored of it. And so why do people that get older get interested in things like finance and history and math and science and things that are like very complex and are boring to a child? It's because they've already basically run out of endorphins on enjoying things that are simple in life. They want things that are complex. And so people that are older that want things that are complex are people with money. And so I think that this sort of more complex gameplay and complex systems that could be a negative for somebody that wants something more simple is going to be a positive for people that are older and want something more strategic and complex. Old people like weird, complicated things like tasting red wine and like understanding the grass and dirt flavor and stuff. They like complex things like watching birds and like understanding the difference between male and female species and like weird, complicated stuff like that. And so I think that video games have been largely designed for a younger audience. And so they're simple and they're very repetitive and very competitive. And there is now an opportunity for a shift in the gaming market to appeal to older gamers, the 30, 40, 50-year-old gamer that wants something incredibly complicated and complex, maybe as complex as financial systems or as life itself. And that would be way more interesting to them. And so it's going to be a negative in some ways, but I think it's going to be a positive in that it opens up a new, more lucrative market, in my opinion.
No, I agree with that. Just because, again, like, I think we're so used to just quick hits of dopamine, all of these very simple things, just very low effort, like activities in our life. Like, and like you say, we get to a point where we're just bored. When you're like 13, these likes mean a lot. When you're 29, I'd hope when you're 29, 30, 40, like, man, the amount of likes, apart from the marketing side of it, like, you know, it doesn't hit you the same way. So it's the same with games. Like, you can play for fun when you're young, but when you're older, it's like, man, I can't. Like, there's no game that I'm playing right now where I'm like, there's no game that I play apart from Smash where I play that competitive, because the value I get from that is like what you're saying. They're more complex, understanding the frame data, understanding like the strategic side of things. But I'm not just playing games to escape anymore. That's just not a thing. And actually, something I wanted to touch on, going back to the balancing concern that you had. I think I'm not a developer, but this is kind of the way that I would try to approach it if it is possible. Essentially, have these assets, these NFTs with core values, like core set values or base stats for whatever game it could be. So let's say, for example, in the order battle, it's attack speed, whatever it is, right? Defense, whatever it is. Have these as like just stat 1, stat 2, stat 3, and whatever that base stat is. So then when you put them onto the kart racing game, they have speed, top speed, acceleration, turning, and the stats actually just translate across. And then you'd have one or two stats that are like a +2 or a +1 random generation or -1, and that gives that the difference in the NFT value. So I could say my Ramfire is better than yours, and so it's still relatively balanced. And it has that. I don't know if that's like what we're actually doing. Andrew, you're shaking your head, so
I don't think that's what Illuvium is doing, but I understand what you're saying. And I think you could, if you from the ground up designed a set of games in a specific set of genres where there are compatible statistics that will carry over, yes.
Yeah.
But let's say attack speed is not going to be relevant in a racing game. It's not going to be relevant in like a card game or any number of other genres, right? However, there's a really great example of how to do what you're describing and but not have it baked into the NFT, but have it still work. And that's Nintendo games. So when you play Nintendo games, Mario in all the games is just is average.
It's average. It's the standard, yeah.
Princess Peach is more floaty. In Mario Kart, she's more floaty with her turning. She jumps and she's more floaty. Toadstool is faster at performing actions, but doesn't jump as high, et cetera, et cetera. They all have their same sort of attributes. And in the Mario Kart, she has tighter turning and acceleration. So they have these sort of character attributes that carry from game to game, but they're flexible. And they aren't like baked into the NFT, if you will. And so I think something like that would make more sense right now with blockchain games. And that would give developers more creative freedom to make it feel like a Scoriox in another genre without hard baking into the NFT certain statistics. And I think the developers need that freedom as new genres come up and as new ideas come along in the creation process. Otherwise, you could be, boxed in, and the gameplay might not feel as good because you're stuck with these effing stats that are on these NFTs, and all these people bought these NFTs, and now they're expecting their Scoriox whatever to be really good in this game, and you're like, God, do I really have to do that? How am I going to make that work? It sounds like you'd be setting yourself up for long-term, lesser game experiences in that case.
Actually, there's one thing that I just kind of want to. Sorry. There's actually something that I just thought about that I really want to kind of just throw out there. Is with all of this going like horizontal, right? Because obviously with the IBGs and everything, but we're moving in a more horizontal, trying to make it. And it sounds like everything that we're kind of saying is like, all right, the developers need to do this, the developers need to do this, and like have this foresight, long-term vision. It seems like this new genre of game, this new genre of studio, essentially needs to be built and thought about from the ground up. Like it can't be a thing that's added on later. With saying that, it seems, in my opinion, that Illuvium is the only studio, thanks to Aaron, in big part, who's planned it out in this way, where we are building it from the ground up. So if this is actually going to be the future and how we move forward, what is your take on all of the current studios, like what they're building? Because they're gonna have to redesign shit, start from the start, or do you think they have a chance to kind of adapt? What do you guys think about that? Andrew, do you want to take that one first, and then we'll throw it to Annie?
I mean, the thing is, like, maybe Illuvium's model works and it's wildly successful. Maybe some things work and some things don't. And maybe it all works and it's gangbuster. Like there's some spectrum of total failure to total success. So when there's a player that tries out something very, very new, everyone else is going to watch and see how they do. And they're going to see which of the ideas that they used work well. Then they're going to copy paste those and implement those between 3 to 5 years later. And that's how it's going to play out with Illuvium. And so in the meantime, what the other game studios are doing are taking all the ideas they know work in Web 2, and they're just copy pasting those here into Web 3, and then taking the lowest possible risk with their tokenomics model, how they're integrating NFTs, what they're doing with interoperability. And most of the games that are out right now, all of them actually, just made whatever game genre and game they could that they could just get out the door fast without giving any shits about the IP or the gameplay or anything. They just wanted to get it out fast to get out early to market. And that's why you see most games in most genres in Web3 right now with the same tokenomics models. They say, this other game in our genre had this tokenomics model, so we're going to use it. I've literally talked to the consulting firms that consult all these games and give them the copy-paste tokenomics model and bit on what to do. And I've fielded those with some of my consulting clients in the past. We didn't go with those models, but it's all the same model. And so why do they do that? Because they feel like they're taking less risk by copy-pasting those models. I completely disagree. I think they're taking significantly more risk by not doing something different and taking a risk now. When you're this far out on the risk curve with any new technology, the unicorn players, the big players, aren't the ones that play it safe when you're primordial goo early. They're the ones that are taking risks, they're doing something new, they're doing something innovative, and they're trying to break shit. So all the players out there that you see are doing a crappier version of insert game X in Web 2 with a copy-paste tokenomics model, their chance of failure is significantly higher than people that are being wild and crazy like Illuvium and are at least trying new things. And it's actually almost guaranteed to fail if you're doing the safe play this early in a new technology. And so that's my view on that matter. So I'm hoping that Illuvium's model, my guess is most of what we're going to do is going to work, and some things will not at all work. And we'll have to adjust and fix those. But the things that we do that do work, we'll catch the attention of the industry, and you'll see everyone else replicating those aspects. Maybe it's our tokenomics, maybe it's how we did interoperability, maybe it's revenue distribution, whatever it is. But people will pick up on those and they'll just use them. But we will be so much earlier and be the leaders with those items that hopefully that'll give us some sort of moat moving forward.
Yeah, Annie. Sorry.
Yeah, I love the mindset there, Andrew, because I'm on record as saying the same, that this wave 2 of Web3 games, as I'm calling them, that are building now, that are going to launch between 2023, 2024, 2025. I do see a number of different approaches that they're taking, but I also believe that none of them are going to work 100%. And so what we're going to see, though, is a lot of really good elements and tools that we're able to then take and pair in really interesting ways. And I think that the wave 3 of games, the wave 4 of games, that's where you're going to see all of a sudden things that are light years beyond what we could even imagine now. But that's because you're not inventing things new. You're then just innovating by combining different concepts that worked in the second wave. And TSG, to your point, I mean, a good example, you talk about the NFTs being able to be used across platform and kind of across games. That's actually Altered State Machine. They have what they call brains that are like AI trained NFTs, and they have a list of like 10 stats, and your brain has, stat 1 is rated an 8, stat 2 is rated a 6, and so on.
Yeah.
And that stat is basically plug and play with the game.
Correct.
So the first game is soccer, the second game is boxing, the third game is racing, and stat 1 for the first game might be speed. For the second game, it might be accuracy. So the developers basically just pick them at random. The difference there, I think, is that you've got essentially a fungible brain. We'll use the fungible term that we all know and love in Web3, because one brain is indistinguishable from another. I think that breaks down when you've got a character like you have with an Alluvial, where you don't want Ramfire to feel like a really tiny, slow character because a developer chose to implement him that way in another genre of game. You want to have him feel like the same character with the same general type of stats and meta overview that he has, no matter what game you're playing within the Illuvium ecosystem.
Yep.
Yeah.
I also, maybe I also want to say that the concept of interoperability is one that I want to explore a little bit more with you, Andrew. We've talked some about the metaverse and what is the metaverse. Talk to 50 people, you're going to get 100 different ideas, and it's been beaten to death. The
We're in it right
for
now.
me-
We're just in we're just in an early version of it.
Yeah. So the question for me is, where do you see this concept of virtual worlds and game platforms, that experience evolving to? Let's go over the midterm, next 5 years, maybe. Anything further than that's going to be difficult to kind of predict.
Yeah, I think 5's good. Let's do 5, and then let's do like the 2030s.
20, yeah.
And then and I think those are two timelines that I feel like you can kind of talk about and think about. But then beyond that is like unimaginable, right? Or you can imagine, but you're probably wrong. So so in the next 5 years, I think what we're gonna see is gonna be a really simple situation where everything in the metaverse is inside of, oh, my camera's not on. Oh, well, I was going to switch to my studio. Everything's inside of rectangles. I'm surrounded by rectangles here in my studio. I forgot to turn on my camera. And so I think our metaverse is going to be rectangular. And everything's going to increasingly still move toward mobile devices, as much as we like to be hardcore PC and console gamers and experience things there. Attention is moving more and more toward mobile, and moving less and less toward PC, and is just running away from console. And also TV consumption is also kind of middlingly growing. And so what does this tell us? This tells us that whatever the most convenient place is for you to chug data is the place that the attention is going to be. And where the attention is going to be is where the gaming is going to be. And that's where the metaverse is going to be. So I think in the next 5 years, game studios, including Illuvium, need to very seriously take mobile into account, and just count on attention being upwards to, it's like 55% in gaming right now, moving up toward like 65% in the next 5 years. And then by the end of the decade, 70% mobile. And so it's okay to launch your games on PC, but you need to have a real strategy to have at least a mobile port, a mobile version, etc.
Yeah.
So that's in the short term. But the point is, this whole metaverse is going to be rectangular, and we are going to be in baby early steps of, at the very best, having games be interoperable within their own game studio like Illuvium, and then any games being interoperable with each other are going to be marketing gimmicks.
Yeah.
You're not going to really see many new genres or much innovation in terms of the gameplay. The innovation is the interoperability between the games. That's in the 5-year timeline.
Yeah.
Moving into a 2030s timeline, I think we are going to see the shift from rectangular gaming, like we're in right now, to the next hardware revolution, whatever that's going to be. And it's most likely that is going to be Facebook's Oculus headset, essentially. Just by the numbers right now, that's probably going to be it. So are you ready for some shocking statistics? Meta is investing $10 billion per year in research, $10 billion per year in research and development. They have over 10,000 people working on Oculus right now. And how many Oculus Quest 2s have been sold so far? Take a guess, guys.
It's going to be a low number, shockingly low.
15,000.
Okay,
15,000 is Annie's guess.
Really low.
TSG?
Damn, oh man. Yeah, I don't know, 50,000. I don't know, 100,000. I don't know, around there.
Yeah.
Are you
ready for this?
In the millions.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah, go.
15 million units have been sold.
Really?
Oh, wow.
All of y'all are sleeping on Meta right now.
They just sitting in a closet somewhere?
You think no,
Crazy.
and people are using them. Y'all think people aren't, you think Meta is not real. People think Meta is not in the game. They think Meta is not serious. They think Meta doesn't know Metaverse. They don't know how to do virtual reality.
No, they know what
they
time
don't
it
know
is.
this hardware platform they're building right now. They know how to sell it already. 15 million. That's getting close to being Xbox and PlayStation 5 numbers.
Yeah.
So it's most likely that we will be playing on Oculus next decade as it stands right now. Look, I could totally be wrong. It could be something else. Hell, we could still be using mobile devices. But as it stands right this minute, statistically, if you look at hardware platforms and new consoles, the only one that's hyperbolically growing to the moon is Oculus. Console declining, PC barely growing, mobile steadily going up, Oculus rocket ship to Alpha Centauri. So don't fight the trend. Don't fight the money. And don't fight people like Zuckerberg that you may hate him. You may hate his guts, but he's one of the best entrepreneurs on planet Earth. And you can't argue with that.
Yeah.
And so I think the 2030s, there's going to be a hardware revolution. It's probably going to be Oculus. There'll be other competitors. And then that's going to shift the game experience toward immersive 3D worlds. That's when we get the immersive 3D world. We don't get that until the hardware is here. And people want this whole world to be decentralized. It will be decentralized this decade. But once Facebook and Meta and their piece of hardware end up winning, they'll have somebody chasing them like Google or somebody doing a copycat tech, kind of like iPhone to Android. Then we're going to move from decentralization, which is this decade, towards centralization, which is next decade. So that's going to be the shift. So you ready? 2020s decentralization rectangles, Illuvium. Next decade, centralization headsets, Facebook.
Meta.
Meta. That's my prediction.
And I
hope I'm wrong, but I think I'm right.
Do you think that I mean, there's so much to unpack. There's so much to unpack. All right, I'll start with
unpopular opinion.
No, honestly, I've said this on Illuvium Talks as well. I think that Meta's got a mass, and I've said this on our podcast as well, Annie. I think Meta has an incredible position to play in this shift. So I agree, man. Like where the capital is, the hardware development, what they're actually going to do to onboard the masses, being a centralized player. I think there's a lot of benefits to it. Whether we like it or not, I think there's the benefits way out, like definitely outweigh the cons. There are some major cons, the 100%, but I think there are a lot of benefits to come with it, especially for us, like pushing the envelope in this space. Completely agree. But
I didn't say I liked it. I didn't say I liked it.
Yeah.
I'm just, I like to follow, if you want to know where things are going, follow the money, follow the sales, follow the customer adoption.
Yeah. And that's, again, like sometimes you can't, like, that's why I tell the influencers and stuff like that. It's like, sometimes it doesn't matter what you as the creator like or want. What does the market want? Like, what does the market actually want? Like, follow the market. Like, they're telling you what they want. You don't need to think too hard about it. Just be aware of what's going on. But something in your 5 and 30 year frame that you didn't bring up, and I'm curious about this, is AR. Where do you think AR sits into this?
Meta will also be dominating AR.
Yeah.
So right now they're partnering with Ray-Ban, and they have some like limited so the way that Zuckerberg described it, and I think he's got the best description of the tech, and he's got the best handle on this of anyone on earth right now. Because he's just spending all of his time doing this, basically.
Yeah.
Basically, the leading edge of like immersive technology, whatever, insert R technology, VR in the case, is going to be the headset with Oculus. Then you're going to have a limited functionality version of that, which is going to be AR. And that's going to be them partnering with glasses brands like Ray-Ban. Probably they'll end up doing every other glasses brand too, so that every style and every brand on earth will have their technology built into it. So anyone who owns a pair of glasses or sunglasses will have Meta in their sunglasses or glasses. And so it's going to be a limited functionality version of the VR. It's going to be like real world information. And Facebook is going to control like the app store, if you will, for Oculus or whatever it's going to be. And so their competitors like Google and everybody else will have to build apps on Facebook's store to have it be in everybody's glasses. Now, Google's going to try. Google's about to release some new Google Glass and that type of thing. And maybe Google ends up being the guy. but somebody ends up being the guy that gets to basically put, this is it. I mean, it's as simple as this, as dumb as this sounds. Your phone is going into your glasses. The phone will dematerialize and you'll just have the glasses. That's it. That's what happens with everything, man. That's what the internet does. It takes the thing that we use all the time and it dematerializes it and it makes it smaller and it puts it into something else.
Yeah.
And so it'll be in glasses in the 2030s here with augmented reality. We already have like an augmented reality version of like Google Maps and stuff. I don't know if you guys have tried the beta on Live View. I tried it in Sydney and New York. It worked great. And it was like an early version. And I was walking around the street. It was telling me where to go. And, you know, it told me, oh, there's a coffee shop right there. Maybe you should shop there. It's the early version of that. 2030s, it'll be in your glasses. And then later on, you imagine what happens after glasses. After the 2030s and later on, the glasses dematerialize, right? And it's inside your eye, right?
Yeah.
So it's just really simple where this goes. Whatever is going to help us basically take in data as effectively as possible and as fast as possible with the least amount of physical material is where we're going. So that's how I see AR. How is AR going to play into video games? I think that similar to how we have PC and console games being the full AAA experience right now, but you have limited versions of those experiences on mobile, you're going to have a similar situation with VR games in the 2030s. This will be in the 2030s, not in the distant future. In the 2030s, you'll have the full experience on the Oculus whatever rig, and then you have a limited version of that experience in your glasses, a mini game version of that in your glasses. But the graphics will be worse, the experiences will be limited, and the glasses version will be more heavily monetized.
Yeah. Interesting. So Annie, that was a lot, right? There's a lot, and we can keep diving. Like, does your vision align with Andrew's? Where's your stance on like the whole 5 to 20 year thing? I'm curious to take this around.
Yeah, no, I think we're pretty closely aligned here. So I agree, Andrew, with your take that the hardware layer here is, it's probably not a winner take all, but it's a winner take most type of a situation, at least for the first decade after we see, new tech materialize. So, I mean, I agree with that. I think the question that remains to be seen is, will we have a substantial pushback on the ability of the hardware providers to capture all of that value that's accruing through the iPhone store today into the glasses, and I wonder that both from a political and regulatory standpoint, as well as from a customer standpoint, because I think you're going to see some pushbacks in both directions. Now, I don't know, and wouldn't hazard a guess whether that will change or not. But I think there's one pathway that leads towards exactly what you shared. The other one is you still have Meta winning the hardware race, and they basically just become a commodity provider of hardware, just like Intel's making chips, and take your pick of other hardware providers that all of a sudden they're the winners in their space, but the value isn't accruing to that layer. It's accruing maybe instead to the gaming layer, or I mean, we'll call the metaverse as like a community layer. All of your virtual identity, your virtual communities that you're a part of.
Totally possible that happens. Absolutely. They're not going to try. They don't want that to be the case, though.
Yeah,
sure.
I think they want to Apple right now. They want to Apple right now. Mm-hmm. They want to have the hardware and the software and the marketplace all in one, so that they can become the most valuable company in the world. If you have to give away one of those three things, then you are only in the top 10 biggest companies in the world. Right? You don't get to be the biggest. So maybe you're right. Maybe they're unable to nail the experiences of the marketplace portion. That's possible. But I think Yi, who controls the hardware innovation, has the opportunity to control the marketplace, just period, right? And as it stands right now, I mean, we saw that with Apple, and competitors came in quick with Android. Android was also successful, and there's a bunch of hardware vendors that came along with Android. But at the end of the day, because Apple was first, they were able to control that space first. And I think that Facebook could have the same opportunity. And obviously, they don't want a winner take all scenario. because they know regulators will come in and break them up if they took all.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to be like the 70% winner and have a 30% trailing competitor there, so they don't have to deal with being broken up as a company and being mitigated through regulation. And so I think that they will welcome competition for that reason, because they know it's healthy for their own well-being, for them to maximize investor return. So we'll see how it plays out. They could fail epically on all fronts, or they really could take all three. There's no player out there I see right now that could take all three, or that is even attempting to take all three. I think the only player out there that could maybe do that, as it stands right now, is Google. But Google has failed pretty badly anytime they've tried to enter the gaming space directly. I mean, you see Google Stadia as an example. See the previous version of Google Glass, they failed with that. So I think that they have proven that they're a failing horse in the gaming space. Whereas Facebook, at least their first attempt to enter gaming, actually multiple attempts to enter gaming, were successful for Facebook. Facebook was the birthplace for online games, popularizing social online games, popularizing like Farmville, Mafia Wars, crap like that, that started all the games that we play today. Also, Facebook gaming has been wildly successful in terms of attracting a lot of international streamers and becoming one of the top 3 streaming platforms. Microsoft tried to do this and they failed. And so Facebook, you can laugh at Facebook, but they're 2 for 2 right now in terms of game attempts to make gaming initiatives work. And so, and with Oculus, you guys were shocked to hear that they sold 15 million units. PlayStation only sold 2.2 million units. Facebook has sold 7 times more than Sony PlayStation was able to. They are 7 times more competent than PlayStation at selling gaming hardware like this. So don't count them out, boys.
I think with, sorry, I just want to say, like, I'll just say this and then you can take it. But like with the whole Facebook thing, because I think, and that's why I think it's good for the rebrand to Meta, because I think for a lot of people that aren't actually in the investing space or just like casual consumers, when we have this discussion about Facebook, some people, again, like our audience is probably a bit more aware, but a casual consumer, if they hear Facebook being thrown around, they're thinking Facebook.com. They're not understanding all of the other things that go behind it. So when we say all the ways that they're winning, for them, they don't see that, because again, the youth aren't using Facebook.com like that anymore. Not like it used to be. But I mean, again, with all of the other avenues that they've got in the market, absolutely they're winning. And again, there's a reason that they're in that spot in the S&P 500, like in the stock market. Like there's a reason they're up there. Sorry, Annie, you were going to say something.
It's interesting to think about them. So whether it's them or somebody else, somebody will end up taking that centralized spot in the metaverse. I guess that's the whole point of this discussion. Maybe somebody plays this back later and they're like, Meta? Give me a break. Everybody knew it was going to be NVIDIA or whoever it ends up being, right? Or some new company. But somebody will take the centralized king of the hill spot at some point. I don't think the decentralization is our ultimate destination. I think centralization is. Back to you, Annie.
And I think one interesting point is that the cycle times that we talk about with new technology are maybe faster than we think and also slower than we think. So if you just look back at the history of gaming and we go back to 70s and 80s, we've had essentially, let's call it 4 generations of different fundamental hardware. And I'm not going to count virtual as a 5th. But if you think about arcades, arcade machines, you think about consoles, you think about PC computer games, and you think about mobile tech. These are essentially the 4 major elements that we see. And each one of those has had roughly a 1 to 1.5 decade run where that became the lead dog in the entire gaming space. And that it's been pretty consistent, surprisingly so, if you go back and look at the last 50 years. And so I do think, exactly to your point, Andrew, we talk about, Oculus or whatever becomes the next set of glasses that's the leader for a while. 10 years, 15 years, that's going to run. And then all of a sudden it's going to be supplanted by something else. And interestingly enough, maybe one of you can think of a counterexample. I can't think of a single example of a studio or a hardware developer that successfully stayed as a leader from one of those generations to the next, from arcade into console into PC to mobile, right? I mean, I can't think of one. Maybe you can come up with a counter example, but I do think that that's good news for innovators. Is that even if Meta wins this next round, it's a short cycle before the next thing will come around, and all of a sudden you're talking about different players in the market.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone that's carried over. On the hardware side, nobody carries over. On the software side, obviously companies can jump from one to the other
They
the
can
next.
shift. Yeah.
So,
Microsoft is an example. Yeah.
Yeah. There's lots of good examples where companies develop games that work cross platform. But again, I think I would argue their core competency is game design and development. It is nothing to do with the hardware, and that's a very different skill set than hardware development is.
Do you think that it's a different conversation now, though, with the amount of capital that these companies are having? Like back in the day, like I don't know, like what the leading arcade company was with the hardware. Like I'm sure the capital that they have is like nothing compared to the amount of capital that a Meta has, right? So if again, we know that what Meta's been doing is once there is a competitor, like Andrew says, they want to kind of keep some of that there so they don't get classed as a monopoly and they avoid regulation. But we've seen them start to buy out these things once they see what's happening. They have, again, they're kind of seeing what's happening with this shift into VR. They're allocating, what did you say, $10 billion worth of capital. So
per
it's
year.
All right, per year. So once the next thing comes out, are we not going to assume that they're just, if they really do win this hardware fight right now, are we not going to assume that they're going to start pumping $50 billion a year into the next thing as well? Because they have that much capital now. The thing that you said about the each hardware transition makes sense, Annie. But I don't think we've ever seen a situation where that top dog has this much capital, free cash flow. It's crazy. Are they actually again? And I'm not saying that I think that's definitely going to happen, but it's just something that I'm considering as well because we've just never been in a situation like that before, where when they see something, they can just throw cash at it. It's not a little bit of cash; it's a lot of cash at it. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I don't know, Andrew, if you got thoughts on that.
Yeah, I do. So I think one of the reasons, and Andy had an interesting take or interesting observation. The reason why Sony, PlayStation, and Nintendo and things like that didn't become the king of mobile, and the folks that made the arcade cabinets didn't become the king of console, etc., is that once you become an entrenched player making physical products like that, then you end up then your margins end up getting cut really badly. So these companies don't make that much money on the actual hardware. In fact, a lot of the hardware is historically manufactured and sold at a loss. They make their money on the software side and the game sales side. And so when that part of your business is a huge part of the manufacturing, distribution, global networking part of your business, and a bunch of your capital expenditures have to be spent making physical things, it's not that attractive for you to invest in research and development to make more physical things, because the physical things don't make your business that much money. Doesn't that sound dumb? But it's true. Yeah. And so as an executive, you're looking at your balance sheet. Let's say you're sitting on top of the top console in the world. You're looking at your balance sheet and you're going, okay, where's all the money coming from? It's coming from software subscriptions and sales and that type of thing. The hardware side of my business is a pain in my ass. It's not making me any money. So if I'm looking into research and development and expanding the business, where am I going to expand? Am I going to expand in the hardware that's a pain in my ass and making me no money? Or am I going to expand in the software that may be a pain in the ass, but it makes me a bunch of money? And the answer is they're going to invest in the software. And so they do that. And then some other player who took risk and decided to invest in hardware ends up starting the new hardware revolution. And we're repeating the process all over again. And so I think that that's going to be the case. I think that's what is the case every generation, and why new companies end up becoming the number one hardware player in the world with the new technology. Facebook has yet, or no one has yet, to become the new hardware player that supplants a mobile device. And Facebook has yet to come up with a hardware play. And so therefore they're hungry to do so. Other top tech players already have a hardware play. All of them do. Except Amazon, kind of. Amazon has Amazon Fire, I guess. I don't know. But for them, their physical product is their delivery infrastructure, essentially, and their warehousing infrastructure. But Microsoft's got Xbox. And Microsoft's got Xbox. Apple has their suite of products, etc. And so Facebook doesn't yet have that. And if we want to talk about a company that's positioned to invest, Facebook right now has $45 billion in working capital. And right now they only have $41 billion in liabilities. So they have so much cash right now that they could literally pay off all of their debt, all of it, and still have $4 billion left over. If I don't know how many of you guys look at balance sheets of publicly traded companies, that is unheard of amounts of cash. So the point being, their competitors, like Google has an equivalent cash situation right now to Facebook, but Google hasn't been flaunting the metaverse play. In fact, their CEO has been talking about how metaverse, might have a part of the future, and it might blah blah blah, and it may such and such. And so they are going to be dragging their feet. And here's how this is going to play out. This is what Google does. Google's going to wait for Facebook to make that Oculus, and it's going to be real good. And guess what Google is going to do? They're going to make the crappier Android version of it and take 30% of the market. They're just waiting. They're sitting on,
which isn't a bad play. Which is not a bad play.
Or it's an amazing risk adjusted play.
Yeah.
Wait for somebody else to make the revolutionary technology. Be sitting on the biggest amount of cash of any publicly traded company in the world. That looks pretty good over there. Bam, it's mine in 2 years. Pretty good play
by their engineers.
Yeah.
I think for sure this topic of hubris, where entrenched incumbents become so focused on maintaining the status quo, they don't see the risk that new entrants to the market are bringing, and they don't see the fact that their entire business model might be going out of date in 5 or 10 years, and that can hit anyone. So I do think it's interesting how quickly, at least from my perspective, Facebook and Meta have made this shift, or Facebook has made the shift to Meta, let's say, because oftentimes you would have expected them to just kind of sit on their laurels with the fact that they've got billions coming in every year, and up until recently they still had a growing user base, right? It's tough to believe that for the last, whatever it is, 20 years now, they've had growing users every quarter for decades. So I think, as you mentioned, Andrew, Zuckerberg is smart and savvy, and he's recognized that they need to make a transition to their next play. But TSG, to your point, I would maybe argue, I don't think we have never been in similar situations where you had pretty entrenched incumbents in industry that had a virtually insurmountable cash and dollars on hand. You're always going to see companies that either form mergers, partnerships, buyouts, new investors that want to take something different. I mean, let's take Musk, right? Let's say Musk decides, you know what? I'm going to fight the thing. I'm going to go buy Twitter, screw the bots, whatever. And by the way, we're going full metaverse, baby. And I mean, not that Twitter is necessarily the best position for that, but he could get enough capital in a hurry. 3 years from now, he'd be able to compete with Meta and I think probably surpass them. He's got the engineers already at his disposal from the auto industry and from the space industry. So, I don't think it's the case that we're not going to see any new entrants enter the market. I think everyone is taking the wait and see approach. Is this really going to pan out? And as soon as you see that, competition's going to surface. And the question is, do they have enough capital? Do they have enough creative ideas to take it to where version 2 of the hardware, of the infrastructure, is better enough than version 1 that Facebook might roll out?
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Andrew, I don't know.
All I was going to say is, fun statistic. If you're wondering who's sitting on a lot of capital, just to give you guys a fun number. So Meta was sitting on a preposterous $45 billion in working capital, enough to pay off all their debt. Google is sitting on $123 billion cash in working capital, and they only have $107 billion in debt. So they've actually got enough cash to pay off every debt in the entire world for Google, and then they would still have, like billions of dollars left. Yeah. So that's how well positioned these companies are to be able to buy up a competitor, to be able to, like Annie's saying, jump into Metaverse nilly-willy whenever they want. And so you got to ask yourself as a gamer, is this to my advantage or not? It is. if one of these players ends up proving that these headsets are and these virtual reality platform is something that consumers want, and Facebook proves that, you want billions of dollars of innovation to show up because your experience is going to be unbelievably better in 10 years. Your gaming experience is going to be mind-bendingly better. Imagine going back in time 20 years to 2002 version of you if you were alive viewers. In 2002, I was playing on I was playing on N64 or GameCube. Those games look like literal dog shit in comparison to every game today. They look terrible. They are terrible. And so imagine the jump in the future. The way the jump happens is billions of dollars in incentives. So that's a huge part of the future of the metaverse. A lot of people like to avoid it and talk about crypto and NFTs, and that's the future. Sure. But like at the end of the day, the money is going to be out there in mainstream hardware, and that's going to suck in all the activity from players like Illuvium and NFTs, etc. Twitch, we were going to talk about Twitch. We don't have to talk about it. Twitch is making a huge mistake. They're making a huge mistake banning gambling.
I mean, if you have time, we can talk about it. I'm down for it.
I've got a few minutes if you want to talk about it. If you don't want to, it's fine. We can go.
Yeah, I mean, let's hit it. Let's hit it because I know it's pretty late for you, and I know you need to catch up on sleep. Yeah, talk about it. Talk about it.
All I wanted to say was I like to talk about statistics. So I always have stats I'm thinking of with all these things. So with Twitch, according to twitchtracker.com, so the context for the story is that they banned some gambling content after streamers outcried. They didn't listen to the streamers. They never listened to the streamers. They don't care about streamers because they know streamers are irrelevant to their business. There's between 8 to 12 million streamers on Twitch. Whenever major streamers leave their platform, it has zero impact on Twitch. The viewers stay on Twitch. They don't leave Twitch. I've been studying this for 10 years, and Twitch never loses viewers when big streamers leave. So they never listen to streamers. They will pretend like they listen to streamers. Their lawyers told them they need to ban gambling content. That's what I think happened. Now, banning gambling content, not good for Twitch. Why not good? Because slots is the number 10 biggest game on Twitch. That's bad to ban something like that. Virtual Casino is the number 26 biggest game on Twitch. Poker is the number 41 biggest game on Twitch. And most gambling content happens through the number 1 category of content on Twitch, just chatting. And so Twitch is not listening to their community. They're not listening to streamers. They listen to their lawyers, and their lawyers said, you need to get rid of some of that crypto gambling because the risk profile for Twitch is too great. I think Twitch needs to continue to embrace gambling, not legal advice, but they should continue to embrace gambling, just like they continue to embrace just chatting a while back, because the market is already fully saturated with people playing video games. I'm sorry, guys, it's no longer interesting to watch someone play a video game anymore. It was really novel and it was really exciting when I first entered the space. Like I started streaming more than 14 years ago, 15 years early when it was on Justin TV. And when people were playing video games there, people loved it. It was novel. It was interesting. It's no longer interesting. That's why just chatting is the number 1 category on Twitch. That's why chess is rising. That's why all these gambling things are rising. That's why hot tub videos with girls like rubbing soap bubbles on their boobies is rising, because watching people play video games is not as interesting anymore. So Twitch needs to be very careful pushing away this new rising category of content on their platform, gambling. And I think they need to be very careful to protect that community and to make sure, like, let's say legit gambling, if you will, World Poker Tour or Hold'em or things that are maybe not insanely risky from a legal standpoint, gambling stays on their platform, or they will move into obscurity. Because as time moves forward, watching people play video games on live streams will only become increasingly boring. People are getting overloaded with it. They've seen too much of it. And it's way beyond oversaturation. If you survey kids in schools right now, the number 1 career they want is to be a online influencer. So when everybody wants to be something and they come piling in by the millions to do it, it's like becoming a rock star used to be, or becoming like a movie star used to be. It's oversaturated. Being a musician is not interesting, right? Being an actor is not interesting. It's only interesting if you're a successful one. And that's the case with streaming right now. And so Twitch is getting themselves into a pickle if they push away gambling or other kind of emerging forms of entertainment on their platform. And they're going to push that activity to other platforms that are going to be willing to embrace it. So Twitch, don't make that mistake. Twitch needs to continue to move away from being a gaming platform in a traditional sense if they want to stay relevant in culture and society.
Agreed.
Why is this happening? Why is there fatigue? The reason why it's fatigue is what I wanted to show earlier, but my camera isn't working. It's because people are getting tired of looking at rectangles. Consumption's going up on rectangles. I hear you. But guess what we need? We need more. We need faster. We need quicker hits and quicker bumps of that sweet, sweet digital drugs. That's why platforms like TikTok are now more popular. You can get the entire satisfaction of watching an entire video in like 10 seconds. More drugs. We're getting to a point where eventually that won't even be stimulating for people. And then that's when we have to move away from the rectangle. So all of this ties in to the story we were talking about a moment ago with Meta. And you're seeing platforms like Twitch, it's not even entertaining enough anymore for people to watch people play a video game through a rectangle. So they have to move out on the risk curve, and it's a dangerous venture for them to do so.
I'm just realizing now with you saying that, I feel like, you kind of saying all of that has made me realize, like, I understand Google's play now. Like, again, the same way that they're kind of waiting for Meta to take over with that shit, they waited for TikTok to really take over with shorts, like short form content. And now what are they doing? They're putting their chips into that and pushing that with extra monetization, things like that, ad split revenue.
YouTube
again,
Shorts, though, is going to Alpha Centauri. Like, it's blasting off.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I think YouTube is meant, Google as a company is, absolutely. They're the big boss kind of chill. Like, they're chilling in their chair, watching everyone kind of do their things. They're seeing what's already popping up. And they're like, all right, I'm going to take that from you. I'm going to take that from you. So 100%. With that, I think, again, I don't know how much more time you want to spend, but like, what is if for anyone upcoming in content or any kind of content advice or with the platforms, with these discussions of Facebook, of Twitch and YouTube, obviously, like what I would say is to try and be on most of these platforms or as much as possible, because more visibility is always the goal. But based on what you're seeing and the statistics that you're looking at, is there one that you really think that is like where is there a platform where we can find underpriced attention is what I'm asking. Is there a form of content, a platform in general where we can find underpriced attention? I currently think it's YouTube Shorts. I don't know if you agree with me. Obviously, with the trajectory you kind of draw out, it seems like that. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's really easy to find where underpriced attention is, and it's where there is no price for the attention. So the more you can pay for attention on a platform, the less underpriced attention there is because the market is already priced in the attention. So Facebook is the worst because all the attention has to be bought with advertising. Instagram is declining because most of the attention has to be bought with advertising. Twitter's not that great because you can buy half of the attention with advertising. And so where are you going to get the growth? On platforms you cannot buy growth on. What are those platforms? YouTube and TikTok. It used to be LinkedIn as well, but LinkedIn is now letting people buy attention. And so it's killing the organic on LinkedIn. Some professional content can do okay on LinkedIn. Reddit is also another platform that people underutilize. You can upload video on Reddit. You can create a profile on Reddit. The lives on Reddit get tens of thousands of views on Pan. And so that's another platform people are sleeping on. So the 4 platforms that you can get free organic reach, basically free views and free growth right now are number 1, YouTube. Has always been YouTube, and in the foreseeable future, it will always be YouTube. Shorts in particular are doing well. Number 2 is TikTok. Number 3 is Reddit. And number 4 is LinkedIn. And outside of that, you can just run some good old-fashioned web SEO if you want. And be sure to collect people's emails and their phone number. So you can run text messages into their phone, and you can send emails to their inbox so that if you become deplatformed in the future or algorithms change, you can reach your customers directly. That's the way to do it. But just generally, 100%. If you see a platform you're on and they let you pay for growth, just know that that platform is on its way to dying for free growth. And so anything Zuckerberg touches goes that direction, right? It starts out with free organic growth, and then it moves toward entirely monetized.
Which is a good business move, but it's not the greatest for creators trying to build up a brand organically. Anyway, All right, awesome.
Yeah, and on Twitch, there's zero growth. So don't. If you want to grow, don't stream on Twitch.
Yeah, I think Twitch is like Twitch in general kind of only makes sense if you've got a brand already, and it's just a good way to kind of congregate your audience and kind of just like
Yeah.
have that live engagement with them. Otherwise, for growth, I don't think Twitch makes sense at all.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. Again, I think we had this conversation. I think it was one of the first conversations we actually had, Andrew, where it was like, all right, if you're going to do these long form streams, fine, do that, but then clip them up into actual videos to put on YouTube. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense. Which is what I'm trying to push people to do as well. Like, do these long streams, react to things, whatever it is, do whatever you want to do. Like, you're pretty much blocking out all your content in 1 or 2 hours, and you just chop it up and put it out. That's
and then do this space.
Pretty much, yeah. Me and you have got that down packed.
I'm still working on it.
Yeah. That. Yo, pretty much. And what's the other one? Yo, I got this one from you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I've got a Google Drive with like 96 different bases. So yeah. All right, cool. All right, awesome, man. Yo, I think that's a perfect place to kind of wrap it up. Any kind of last thoughts, final thoughts, last words?
Yeah, Andrew,
before
just
you
thanks
die. Sorry.
Yeah,
before you die,
it's like you're done. Any last words before we before you die?
That's right. Well, it's got to be a good one if these are my last words. No, Andrew, thank you.
Fuck you guys.
Thank you so much for joining us. It really was great having you as our first guest on Gaming on the Block podcast. Sorry we weren't able to get Will on as well, but definitely he was really enjoyed talking about the future of really Web3 gaming and let's just say the metaverse in general, because I think the discussion that we're talking about is really where are people going to spend most of their time over the next couple decades, and it's virtually. And so in general, I think it's an important consideration for us to be having as an industry, and really excited to watch you and the rest of the Illuvium team build that. So thanks for joining us.
Awesome. Yeah. Again, I'll kind of throw it to you, Andrew. Last words for the podcast, not for life. Anything else you kind of wanted to say to close out with?
No. All I have to say is all hail the Zuck. All hail lizard people. No, everybody's watching your podcast is already aware of all of Illuvium. That's it. So there's nothing for me. There's nothing for me to plug. So thank you for listening. Thank you for your attention. And we really appreciate all of your support, especially in this extreme down market. If you're listening to this right now, you're a true believer, and like we are. And I'm really glad you're here, because this would be a really lonely journey if there weren't people around you that truly believed and were only here for the invest. Seeing things down 80, 90%, and they all left. And so if you're here right now, you're a real OG, and it's going to be really fun to watch this space transform over the next 2 years with you guys. And then to be able to have that experience of, yeah, we were around when it was at X, and then it went down to Y, and then it went back up. And having that knowledge of experience of going through a boom and bust cycle will make you so much more mature and make you so much more experienced and be able to give you such good perspective for everything in life. I'm excited to go through that cycle here in Web3. It's fun. And I'm glad I've got passionate people to share it with. Otherwise, I don't know, man, it's hard to keep up the hope sometimes when everybody's telling you your industry is dead. But that's why I like taking conversations like this, is realizing, oh yeah, there's other people out there that get it.
Yeah. And that's what I wanted to say as well, man. Like, again, thank you. Cause again, you do so much for the Web3 space in general with the Illuva Talk, just like you having these long form discussions and bringing out perspective from various intelligent people. I'm going to say this on this podcast, but I've been saying it behind the scenes for a long time. I think Annie is like, yo, I'm so grateful to be able to do this with Annie. Just like, I think Annie is such an intelligent person in this space. I just, that's it, man. I need to say this publicly. I've told him privately as well, but so having these conversations again with like yourself, Andrew, with Annie, it's honestly such a great thing. And again, I'm happy that you were able to come on and share your perspectives, because you're always the host. And I know that you have such great insight with all of this shit. And I think people need to hear more of that from you. So thank you for coming on, man. And all right, yeah, guys, thank everyone for watching. Again, we're going to clip this all up. The link's down below for the Clips channel. Check that out. And as always, guys, yeah, you guys know what to do. Like, subscribe, all of that stuff. And yeah, follow Andrew on Twitter. Everything's in the description. All right, let's end it. All right, peace out, guys. Peace out.
Bye, everyone.